Good evening, good afternoon. Yeah, can you believe that this is my first intro? I swear it's not, it's my second. But today I'm very delighted to be joined by Caleb Pierce, who does the voice of Zack in Final Fantasy VII Remake and in Crisis Core Reunion. How are you today, sir?
Alex, I feel delighted that I'm joining you right now.
So you say that. I don't believe you.
Honestly, this is the best day of my life now.
Sure it is. So let's talk about your tax returns. No,
right. Well, and I have to go.
Exactly. It's great to have you here. In fact, I had tried to reach you around the launch of Crisis Core, and unfortunately, we hadn't been able to connect. So quite a few people were asking us, you're going to have the chat, or you're going to do the interview and talk, and we just didn't get to.
Oh, that's sweet.
But we did have a chat, just a casual chat between us. I think it was about 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And as you said, you've been, sat there like a sad puppy waiting for me to call you back. So here I am.
I've just been waiting here for 3 weeks. Like, where's Alex?
Your wife called me and said he's so sad. He's just curled up in a ball on the ground. And I was like,
I know. He just can't stop crying. I know. So let me just wipe this away, and I'm good now.
So anyway, I thought we'd talk Zack, because it's kind of cool,
All right.
So look, let's talk about the. Let's turn the clocks back before we even talk about Crisis Core. How did this audition come around? Because I believe this is your first voiceover for a game. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah.
So how did it come about?
Yeah. So let me back up just a bit. So I'm from Texas, from the South. I started taking acting classes when I was younger. When I was 15, I started taking voiceover classes and would just go in for things here or there, things that were auditioning. Then I moved out to LA 9 years ago. I have an amazing agent out here. What'd you say?
It's the place to be, as they say. Yeah. Every voice actor. Where are you from?
It's California. Hollywood, right? Yeah. So I have an amazing agent that sends me voiceover auditions. And so what it looks like is, you get an audition. They're pretty quick turnarounds. You have 2 days to get it turned in. Thankfully, my agent has a booth set up at their agency. So I will go in and record in a booth. And there's a voiceover director there that, can kind of coach and guide. So anyway, I'd been going in for things, been getting really close on things. And you know how it is, as an actor, you're just doing the grind. I think they say 1 out of every 40 auditions you hear back from.
I didn't know that.
So yeah. So it's a lot of, you put in a lot of work and time, and then you just, when you leave, you kind of don't, you have to dismiss it from your mind. You can't keep thinking about it. You just kind of go on to the next. So I got an audition, just kind of like I normally do throughout the week. They did not call it Final Fantasy, so I had no clue it was Final Fantasy. But I went in, they had me read a couple lines, and I felt great about it. It was fun, and it was one of those that we just did 1 or 2 times, and we were like, okay, let's send that in.
Do you remember what they had you record, out of curiosity?
Alex, I don't. I don't remember the specific lines.
Probably something generic.
Right. Yeah. I think it was kind of made up. I don't know that it was anything that we ended up using in the game,
right,
but
okay.
So again, had no clue. I left, I think a year later. I was spending the night at 2 of my friends lived down by the beach. And so I was like, I'm just going to have a beach weekend and go hang with them. And they have a guest room. So hanging with them. And I'm never up before 8 a.m. I love sleeping in. And
okay.
But I got a notification at 6 a.m. from my agent. It was hey, congrats. I just heard you booked this. By the way, it's Final Fantasy and you can't tell anyone. And I'm like, what? What? It's one of those, you read the email and you're like, is this real life right now? And it was one of those things since I couldn't tell anyone, my friends were like, what were you doing up so early? And I'm like, Hollywood, right? When Hollywood calls, but I couldn't say anything. Mm-hmm. So that was the start of that. And I went in for 1 or 2 sessions, I think, for the game. The team was just so kind and welcoming. They were fantastic. And then about 6 or 7 months later, I got another email in my inbox. It's like, hey, what would you think about signing on to do a game for the next year? And I was like, you know what? I think I'm available. Let's do it. So that's how Crisis Core came about. And that was just mountaintop experience working with that team. And, doing something for a year that you can't tell anyone about is just I don't know, it's a really cool feeling and it's exciting. And, you're showing up to work and no one really knows, like none of my friends really know what I'm doing. They're just like, oh yeah, he's a voice actor and, he's working on a project, but they don't know anything more,
Right. How familiar were you with the series beforehand? Did you know too much about it?
Honestly, I didn't know too much about it. No, my two brothers are huge gamers. And I just am not, solely because I'm just not good at it. Like, I don't feel like my brain works fast enough to like, so I feel like
if we ever do like a game or whatever, I'll be like, you're not on my team.
Gosh.
You got it, right?
Yeah. I'll have my wife helping me on the side.
Sounds good.
I honestly feel like though that was an advantage because I didn't have in my mind before I started doing the research, I didn't have a preconceived what Zack needed to sound like or what, would be expected. I was able to just come at it from an actor's perspective of like, all right, here's the story of Zack. Here's who Zack is. How can I bring me to that? And of course, after you get the role, like when we recorded Crisis Core, they were great about every scene that we did. We would watch the original and just talk through like, okay, what was Zack's intention here? What was he thinking in his head? Why is he acting this way? So, we wanted to honor the original version of the game, but it was nice because they also gave me room to bring my interpretation of it as well. So I felt like it was a good balance. And yeah, it was a lot of pressure, because Zack is so loved and rightfully so.
Yeah. But let's talk about, before we get too deep in Crisis Core, we'll talk about the remake in general. Like, remake was a big deal. When you got the email from your agent there, did they tell you it was Zack that you were doing, or did you just?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew it was Zack, which was okay. That's pretty cool. So I imagine you're probably pretty heavy on the Google then.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. Who the hell's that? And then you start looking it up. I mean, surely you probably knew what Final Fantasy was. You probably knew the the epicness of VII and this, that, and the other. So you get this role, exciting. Now, not too much content for you in remake. A little bit of to and from. And as you said, it was about 7 months later you get the call, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to do another one?" Were you thinking to yourself probably that this is part 2 that they're calling me for, or did they come out and tell you from the beginning it was Crisis Core?
So, okay, they didn't tell me that it was Crisis Core. They had an alternate name for it.
Right.
But I was able, thanks to Google, I was like, I knew that there was something up with. I knew that it probably wasn't the second reinstallment. I knew that it was something else, just the way that they had worded it. And so I remember researching and then finding that there was an old game, with Zack. And I knew them needing me for a year. I was like, okay, this must be more of that, But they really don't tell you much. I mean, even when you go in to record, you don't know what you're recording that day, So there's some things when you go in and you're like, oh my gosh, wait, this is a scene that we're, so it's not like you're getting the script beforehand and you get to read over it and work on it. Like
I've heard it all before. How people say they just dump it and they're like, do it. I was like, okay,
they do, right? I know, which is exciting as well because you don't get in your head. You get to go in and just embrace whatever you're doing that day. And
you could have said you could have embraced your dreams. Then you could have ran with that one.
Dang it!
You're a very poor professional. You had an opportunity, you blew it. You're fine.
Let me try that
Let's
again.
do it again. Yeah.
You could embrace your dreams.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Right.
Yeah. Good one. No, so I mean, the difference in dialogue between, say, the remake and this. I mean, you're loaded in this one.
That's right.
And I think you said you were recording for about a year for it, which is a good chunk of time.
4 or 5 days a week.
And the original Crisis Core, I think, was 2007, I want to say, which would make it 15 years.
Right.
I think, that sounds about right. We'll just say that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, a good chunk of time. And obviously the game had, has received quite a little bit of attention to the way it looks and the way it plays. The music's been redone. I'd already played Crisis Core before on a PSP, hadn't finished it.
Did you play it when it first came out, or When did you play it?
I don't think I'd played it when it first came out, but I played it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. When a friend had suggested, you should try this. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. But it was, the game most games don't age great,
Right.
It's either a classic game or it's not. And the PSP is a wonderful console, but I wasn't really getting into it. After the remake, of course, it's a completely different look. The game's really fresh.
Right.
I mean, the remake is phenomenal. So I was really keen to play Crisis Core. And on a personal note, as I said to you already, I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was a fantastic game. But let's talk about the legacy of the title a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not a new game. The same with VII Remake, even though it's a new game with some changes to the storyline, it is still a game from 26 years ago now, which has had voice actors with Advent Children and other Final Fantasy VII related content. So previously, your character was voiced by Rick Gomez.
Rick Gomez, yeah. Right.
So did they play any of Rick's stuff to you when you were in the studio?
Absolutely. I mean, we played every scene that Rick had recorded. There's some scenes in the remake that previously didn't have dialogue to them. So those we didn't, but we actually started by recording every scene that Rick had done, just to get a feel for what had Rick brought to the character. And Rick is amazing. I mean, his work on the game is it's incredible. So I was able to. They
cocked up a line in the game and kept his dialogue.
Yes,
for one line.
I saw that. I saw that.
No, I did laugh.
I actually love that.
I sat there quietly playing. I was like, "What the hell was that?" Like,
I was gonna say, did you catch that?
I did catch it
as you're playing. Yeah, that made me laugh. And I took it. I was honored that Rick still got to be part of the game in that way. But they did a great job of, we listened to every line delivery that Rick gave before we would record the new version. Right. And we talked through, hey, what was Rick's intention here? What was he thinking? Why is Zack acting this way? And then they let me take it, from there. And so usually when you record in the booth, you give 3 or 4 takes, just different versions of the line. And then they get to choose, which one they want to use. But it's also a challenge, too, because you're trying to match the Japanese rendering of just how the lips move, and so sometimes the English translation may be a little shorter than, how they said it in Japanese. So you have to, as an actor, you're not only thinking like, what is the character thinking right now and feeling, but you're having to technically stretch the line or say it faster,
No, I think I was talking to Adam Crosdale from Final Fantasy XV, the voice of Ignis, and he was like, the I forget, it was like the director or something. He was like, I need you to shave off half a second. He's like, how the hell can I do that? There's only, there's only so fast you can say, I've come up with a new recipe. You can only do so much. So no, I completely appreciate that. And as I said, sorry, go ahead.
What were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say what's cool is they'll have one of the writers Skyping in for every session. So sometimes my session's in the afternoon. Sometimes the writer is up at 4 a.m. Skyping from Japan. And just if there's a line that's not working, they'll retool it, to make it work.
And is that writer usually Japanese speaking, or when he has a translator with him, or is he usually, English?
So he's normally Japanese speaking, but he can speak English as well.
Gotcha.
So he's writing the line, but he's also telling you in English what the line will be. Yeah.
Oh, that must be fun.
Yeah. And you know what? You're in the booth and the director's on the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
And talking to, whoever that writer is in Japan.
The poor bastard at 4 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Whenever they're talking, you can't hear them.
Right.
So I'll give my line reading, I'll say embrace your dreams. And then they're the director's and then there's just 4 minutes and then and you're in your head, did I mess that up? Yeah.
What's wrong with Caleb? Why can't he say embrace your dreams properly? What's wrong with him?
Right. But then they'll come back on 5 minutes later and be like, great, we're moving on. Yeah. And you're like, what did they just discuss for 5 minutes?
We're moving on, pack your bags.
Exactly.
I think for someone who played like myself, who had not really played the original in great detail, the furthest I think I got in the original was Gongaga, I think it was.
Yes.
Or no, maybe not yet. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute. I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, you're going to enjoy this one. But anyway, it was fresh for me, so I went in with a fresh take on it. Now, one of the things that the remake cast suffered from when the game first came out was the people who wanted it to be like the original.
Right.
I don't understand that. I can appreciate it. But it's fair to say that the reception of the remake and Crisis Core when it came out, that some people were quite judgmental and said, this isn't Rick, this isn't, but you took your fresh take to it. And to be honest with you, I think that a lot of the people who still probably had Rick's voice in their head as they started to play the game, the further they got into it, it kind of fades away. Then you're playing the game. Do you remember, like, when you were in the booth, what kind of direction that they were giving you, like how they wanted, like, obviously you had Rick's stuff to go on to kind of help you, but did they kind of tell you how they wanted the character to sound? Did they give you an idea of, like, how they wanted him portrayed, or did you have freedom to kind of do it how you wanted to do it?
Yeah, they wanted my voice, but they wanted my voice to match who Zack was. So there would be times that, I would give a line reading, and the director was amazing. I remember, like, our first week recording, he's like, Caleb, gonna need him to sound a little tougher than that. And I'm like, oh, right. So making those minor adjustments, but as far as my voice and, how I talk on the daily, that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was having to put on a voice. I would just have to make adjustments based on, if Zack is, like, running in a scene and he's out of breath, like, it's not going to work for me to say the line, But as far as, like, they wanted me to bring me.
The way I've always thought of Zack is he's kind of more like he's got a bit of a goofy cloud to him. Do you know what I mean? He's young. He's a little naive. He's just
like
he's a little bit crazy,
Right.
And he's just adventurous. And I think you played the part great. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Alex.
And since the game came out, and I had an opportunity, I played it downstairs by myself. My wife decided she was going to play it, and so she played on the Switch, and I played on the PlayStation downstairs. And anyway, so she really enjoyed it. And the one line that she just can't let go of is the me Gongaga. And I swear to God, it doesn't matter when it was, time of day. I'd be upstairs just minding my own business, watching repeats of Diagnosis Murder from the 90s. Right. Van Dyke, and just at the bottom of the stairs, you'd hear me Gongaga, and to the point now where the kids are even doing it for no apparent reason. So thanks for that.
And I think it's a meme now. I think it's been a meme, but I think it's now.
It's been concreted in the current millennial times.
Right. That's so funny. Hey, you gave a great rating of that, Alex.
Were you familiar with do you remember recording it, looking at it, going, "Is this got to be a typo, isn't it?" Like,
absolutely, because you get the lines just one at a time. And when I first got that, the director and, the writer are amazing and so supportive. But there would be time. First off, I'm from Texas, so I have a little bit of an accent just naturally. So I can't tell you. I'm like, one line, I had to say the word being, like BEING.
Right.
And from Texas, I say it like being. Like, where have you been? And that probably took the most. I don't know how many takes you had to do that, but the director kept being like, being, and I'm like, being.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, being, so there's
if you hadn't have told me you were from Texas, I wouldn't have picked up on it. But now you've said it. Now I can hear the twang,
Yeah. Especially when I go back to visit, like there would be times we would have, we'd be recording, then we'd have like a 2-week break because they'd need to get the next round of batch recordings ready.
Right.
So I'd go to Texas and see the fam, and then when I come back, the director would be like, you went to Texas, didn't you? And I'm like, how do you know? But there was a lot of that. I mean, they would walk me through, but there was definitely, if you could hear some of the first takes of some of those lines, I think you'd just be like, what is Caleb saying? Because even I was like, what am I saying?
Yeah.
But thankfully, the best part is you get to do it as many times as you need. And
do you recall how many times you had a shot at that one?
Alex, I don't know. Maybe that was a lot. Maybe 9 or 10. I don't know.
I think my wife would enjoy the mixtape of that one. Just the whole thing.
I need to call them up and be like, do you guys have just every one of those recordings?
I don't know why she was so obsessed with it. She just thought it was hilarious and just keep saying it randomly for any opportunity. But,
oh my gosh, that's funny.
But it is a good line. And I have seen so many short TikToks, videos, everything, reels of just to be like, and the same line over and over again.
Right.
So, but I mean, that's the things that people remember. That's the things that stick with people, Yeah. The great thing about the arc of Zack is I think it has a really good story. While he is, a bit goofy, a bit nerdy, doesn't take things too seriously. The end of the game, I won't go too spoiler here, but it's quite heavy, quite intense. So, you got to play the full arc of your character, even though you kind of played a portion of that arc in the remake.
Right.
And we don't know, if Zack's going to get any airtime for a rebirth. We're going to assume he does. And, if he does, then, I'll be excited to see how they play back on parts of the story. I think it's going to be quite interesting.
I mean, that's an actor's dream, right? Is to play a character that's not just two-dimensional.
Well, you also had the opportunity to do a little bit of Zack in First Soldier, didn't you? I don't know if they told you if that's what they were recording for.
Right. Yeah. Some of those, when you go in, they honestly don't tell you.
Right.
So you don't really know, and even seeing just like the end, even with something as simple as like the graphics, like I'm seeing those when the fans are seeing it. When they release the trailer, it's not like I've seen it before. I was on that call when they released the trailer, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to watch the trailer. So a lot of it is just so, it's just so undercover that you don't really know until 6 months later. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's what that was for.
I mean, there's always the possibility in the future, assuming that they do another Dissidia game, that they might invite you back to do lines for that, because that's quite common for them to do. So, you've had an opportunity to kind of voice a character over multiple games, put your stamp on it. I think that's really cool. And to think, hopefully in the future, you can come to a KupoCon yourself and, be prepared for every single person to be like, go on, say it. Say it.
Only if your wife is there, Alex.
Oh yeah, my wife will be like, she'll be stood next to you. She'll be your agent from then. She'll be like, it's $10 for the me and it's $50 for the Gongaga.
That's right.
But anyway.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I'm hoping to come to one, Alex. That would be amazing.
I think it'd be a fun experience. Like Zack is a beloved character, and sometimes I think Zack has more love than Cloud. And I don't know if it's just because he's like he's the black sheep. I don't know if he's
how can you not love Zack?
He's original Cloud, really, isn't he? I mean, Cloud's kind of a confused Zack lover boy type thing, I mean, I'm not going to spoil the story, but he,
right.
When you're playing Crisis Core, Cloud is very different. He's very young, very naive. And then, through some very traumatic experiences, that kind of turns him into who he is for Remake. I think it all plays, really nicely together. And I know a lot of people are not a huge fan of the expanded, compilation of Final Fantasy VII, but I think they both play into each other really, really nicely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, look. Sorry, go ahead.
How long did it take you to finish the game?
I want to say, I think it was about 20 hours. I think it was.
That's amazing.
It was about 20 hours. I wasn't one to do all the missions. Sod that.
Right.
Like, God, I was like, I think I did 46%. And it's like bust a sword. I forget what the word is, but you have to like efficiency, I think it is. It's like 1%. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I can, and I really enjoyed the combat in it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And
I have to say that was one of my favorite days recording is we just had an all combat day.
Yeah.
That the lines are just like, ow. Run, and that is like that was. But
I'm told that those are some of the most like exhausting sessions because
we took a lot of breaks.
Voice,
right. We took a lot of breaks that session. Yeah.
Well, look, I really appreciate you coming to talk to me today. It's been interesting, I hope we can get you to an event in the future. I think it'll be fun. I think we could. Yeah, definitely think we could have some fun, especially with some of your dialogue, because you do have some great dialogue.
I do. The best dialogue.
So,
Alex, thank you so much. You ask great questions and you're fun to be around, and I'm thankful to know you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, it's been fun. Until next time. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Until tomorrow.
Yeah, because you'll be curled up in the corner crying again. So I'll call you tomorrow. Don't worry, it's fine. But until then, folks, look, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Take care. Bye-bye.